Welcome to the 5 P's of supporting a friend or loved one struggling with depression. I'm going to share some quality information that is going to make sense. And if you are new to this channel, please subscribe and hit that notification button so that you can get notified when I upload a new video. So, this is a system that is based on our community's needs. And that's very important that I start off with that because our needs are different. And this is not what it's not is a cookie cutter, one shoe fits all, one size fits all type of approach. This is something that takes a bit of time. And I think that is one of the things that our community has been robbed of is the ability or the freedom to apply time to our needs. We're always engrossed in some level of struggle, shortage, resources not being there, and trying to find quick, turnarounds that flip things, turn things around, get to the goal faster or the fastest way possible because we just have had that stress as part of the systematic piece, that we've had to deal with since we've been here, just as black people. So I want to first say that this is not going to fall in line with a lot of the, approaches that I've found to be ineffective and also just not custom enough. Custom meaning I feel we need to take the time to listen to each other, take the time to understand each other, give each other the respect and value of the time that it takes to get to know the person, their struggle, their personal nuances, and the things that make them them. And, that gives you more of a chance to be comprehensive in whatever you're doing. So, that's the first thing I want to say. This is not a magic pill, flip the switch and it all goes away type of approach. I'm sure that in our community we've seen where those kinds of approaches are somewhat band-aid. And I don't want to do that. I want to give us the same respect or a higher quality of respect than we've been getting. And the same respect that I know that works in other communities. So this is just I should say this is where that level of approach is not for everybody, and I'm okay with that. But I also think that eventually we all kind of get here, where it's like, listen, take your time. Okay, take your time. So with that, I want to start with a couple of things that I think are also, particular to our community, is that we did not learn, and you can just watch any group of black people in how they interact. We did not learn the art of listening. We don't listen to each other, And it's funny, I laugh at it when I say you can watch a group of folks start to interact and start talking, and it's like nobody ever finishes a sentence. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Like, and it's not everywhere. Some folks who've been in, less intense communities within the less intense areas within the black community are probably looking at me like, what are you talking about? But if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Like, folks don't listen to each other. First, we yell at each other, which I've just never been a fan of. But, it just kind of is what it is. Some folks are just, we come up in those kind of environments. But we don't listen. That's the punchline to this. And I think it's important that we start to do that because when you think about it, when you don't listen to the whole expression of what someone's saying, you really don't have a point to respond to. Or the correct or the whole point to respond to. So I want us to really start to take the time to listen to each other. And, stop feeling like, especially the elders to the younger people. I know I experience this a lot. Let me know what your thoughts are. And anything I say, if you you agree with and I'm a like-minded kind of space. I'm not here to argue with you. You know what I mean? I think that's another thing before I even finish the listening point, the elders. It's another thing we do. We argue too much amongst each other. And I'm not about that at all. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's more important to find like-minded people than to argue points. Because you don't move anything with the conflict. You know what I mean? You move along when you can grease wheels with like-mindedness. So if you feel strongly about something, find other people that feel strongly about it, and you can build a community from there. And then also, be sure to qualify what it is you feel strongly about. I'm going to get to that in a second. That's another point. It's just we all feel strongly about stuff and then take to getting defensive. I'm going to get to that next. But with the listening piece, particularly the elders to the younger generation, that's been my experience where elders feel like they know every goddamn thing, and they don't need to listen. And I'm like, yo, who lied to you? And it just makes it very distasteful. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth to try to talk to folk who they just waiting for you to finish. And even when you're done talking, they're not even responding to what it is that you're actually saying, what it is you're exactly saying. They're telling you what they think you need to do. And I'm not that way. And I feel like that's not a good way to be. And it's definitely not a good way to parent. If you've ever been a child who've experienced that, you can probably attest. So with that said, it's very important that we take the time to listen, and take the time to listen, with the thought that you don't understand. There's no way you can understand. Even after you hear it, you can't really understand. The best you can do is empathize. And I know it annoys me when people tell me that they feel me or they understand. I'm like, there's no fucking way you can understand what I'm saying unless you've been through what I've been through, unless you're experiencing what I've experienced, or have experienced what I'm experiencing. So it's not about so much, those cookie cutter statements. Oh, I understand. I feel you. Don't tell me you feel me. Like, don't, say things that make sense in the moment and are authentic to the situation. One of the things I tell people to say all the time, that just makes sense, is, okay, I hear you. I hear, and not just saying that, repeat something that they said. I hear you. I hear you saying, that you feel this way because this, that, and that. And I can definitely see why you said that. That's listening. You know what I'm saying? That's listening, and not just brushing, or glazing over the statement with basic comments that people always say. I feel you, I hear you, not I hear you, I feel you, I understand. Definitely just invest in, and I want to go into that a little more in the 5 Ps. And then circling back, to the other point where I feel like in our community we can definitely do more of is stop feeling like, everything doesn't need to be a fight. I just, even when people are in, in so quote unquote the same community, like, the fact that you disagree with something does not, you don't always need to voice that. You just don't, especially if it disrupts the whole flow of what's happening. Well, I need to, no, you don't. You really don't. And in the way we get so defensive, and it's like a lot of the times you get defensive over what you believe without knowing what the fuck you talking about. And that's just real. Like, you can watch people just huff up and puff up, and I feel, and it's like, feelings aren't facts, dude. How you feel is how you feel. Okay, but we really need to stop being so defensive. And whenever I introduce a new idea, it's sometimes met with such defensiveness based on the newness of it. You know what I mean? People don't even give it a chance. They just see something new and they like what they've been doing, and just being afraid of it. And that's one of the things in our community. Be open to new ideas. Even if you don't necessarily even have to agree, or I'm not in the business of converting anybody. You know what I mean? I like-mindedness, meaning if what I'm saying resonates with you, then keep listening. If it doesn't, go away. You know what I mean? Nothing is for everybody, but what I'm not going to do is argue with you. I think that's a waste of time. If you don't find value in what I'm doing, okay. If I don't find value in something, I'm not the one. You see this online. People will be in a group or, in a thread, and everybody is, cheering along, whatever the situation is, and there's the one person. And I'm like, why are you here? If you feel that strongly in adversity against what's going on, go somewhere else where that idea is the norm or the thread. And it's like the guy who buys a ticket to a concert to boo. You really spent your $20, $30, $40, $50 to come here and hate. And that's something in our community I really don't understand, and I want us to start looking at, because if that's you, then with all due respect, and I don't speak down to black people, even the person who is that person, I don't speak down to. I feel it's more important to always try to either bridge a gap or leave. And what I mean by that is, if you are that person, what I'm saying now is, hey, I wish you a community that thinks like you. And I want you to go and find that. And I want us to make that the priority as opposed to fighting. That infighting is part of the biggest problem with our community. You know what I mean? We always fighting about something. As opposed to, I don't agree with that. Go over there where there are people who agree with what it is that you think. And that's the solvent to that problem. So these are the kind of things that I want to do to set a tone. And we need to do that within our space, because I will say some things that I've researched and looked up, and I don't believe in everything. I'm the dude who qualifies everything, and I don't regurgitate just something that I've heard or found online. I really, take what I do very seriously, so I take the time. And then I had this happen on Instagram. I won't repeat. Somebody said it was just the stupidest comment, the most unthought of comment. And it's something where you really didn't get or understand what it was that I was saying. You just didn't agree with it and thought of the most outlandish way to challenge it. And I'm just delete. I don't have time. I'm not gonna argue about what I know. So I want to set those kinds of tones. If it's more important to be like-minded than to be defensive. Okay? It's just an easier way to live your life. So with that said, I want to jump into the 5 P's of supporting somebody with a struggle or struggling with depression. I'm sorry. Now the thing about this is, even how I just said it, I want us to really be open to a line of thinking that's different to how we think. And one of the specifics of that is, I think depression has been so misunderstood in our community and miseducated on. I hear people talking about how, anxiety and depression kind of run hand in hand a lot of times. How anxiety is natural. And I'm like, fuck no, it's not natural. What baby, you can look at a baby if you want to see what's natural. What natural means that's what you was born with. And when you understand, a lot of us don't study social behavior or social sciences. There's nature and nurture. There's what you learned from your environment, nature, and what you learned coming out the womb, or what you had coming out the womb. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Your environment is nurture. Your environment is nurture, and nature is what you had coming out the womb. How can you tell somebody that they came out of the womb with anxiety? You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna go into the depth of that, but I will say that you can see what people came out the womb with as a baby, as a toddler, as an infant. And a lot of the times, that behavior changes as they get older. You know what I mean? They get more into the nurture piece now, and their behavior changes because of their environment. And I feel like if you really, we want to get some bottom lines going. If you really feel like you are, especially in a religious community, if you really feel like you are, what's the scripture? Perfectly made. You know what I mean? There is no excuse then for the challenges that come with these mental health issues that you cannot say you were born with if you were made in His image, right? And I'm not the religious proprietor at all. I am not pushing any religion at all. But I know a lot of our community, is grounded in the faith or the spiritual arena. And if you really believe that, son, you got to pick one. If you are made in His image and you are divine and all those great things, you then stay in that lane. And that means that everything else that happens outside of that is not of that and is to be combated, not accepted. And I say that because I teach people to not say things in ownership of what it is that you don't want to own. You don't have depression, you're struggling with depression. When you have it, it means you just have it. Okay? And you say that really simply. If you're struggling, that means you still have an opportunity to win. I like battling about it too. You still have an opportunity to win. Having it means that's it. You have it. You're depressed. I don't say I'm depressed. I don't say you're depressed. I say you're battling depression. Battling means the result of a battle is there's a winner and a loser. So you still have a chance to win. So I use those terms because they're empowering. To say I am depressed is not empowering. To say I have depression is not empowering. To say I'm battling with it, then you have a chance to win. And that's where we really need to give ourselves those windows of opportunity to win. So if you're supporting someone battling with depression, there's certain things you need to do. You know, I talked about listening earlier, and listening is number one. Listen without the understanding, empty your cup, without the understanding that you think you have. Every person with depression symptoms are different, their triggers are different. It's not a blanket. Depression does not make sense. It doesn't follow a line of logic. You know, there's even seasonal depression where folks get depressed around the holidays and around the fall and winter time when there's a lack of light, because light, we were taught this in school. Light is medicine. Sunlight is medicine, especially for black people with melanin. And that's a fact. Like, you know, I want us also as black people to stop trusting the medical community so blatantly. I got two words for you to justify that thought. Tuskegee experiments, and you can stop me when I start lying. We are in a system that, by their actions, have shown that they value us a certain way. They don't value us at all. They don't give a shit about us. Stop valuing them. Value who values you. And I can't say it any clearer than that. And some people might find that offensive. Okay. Well, I want you to find it offensive also when one of us gets murdered in the street, and let's see who shows up at that march. Find that offensive. And enough so, because what I just said doesn't cost anybody a life. But when, you know, a traffic stop costs you your life, or in the case of Sandra Bland, who did not commit a crime, I want you to find that offensive enough so to huff and puff the way you huffing and puffing when I say it's important that we not trust the medical community, because that's part of that same system. And trust is to be earned, not given. That's another thing I want to insert into our community. You know, we trust way too quickly, and we trust even, you know, we trust without even really thinking about it. You know, and it sometimes is insulting to intelligence, to the point where some ideas have seeped into our community that is not only unintelligent but insulting to intelligence. That, like, the idea of Jesus being white is insulting to intelligence. It really is. Where it's like, that's like saying you can squeeze milk from an orange. That's how logical that idea is. But, you know, we got black people now who say it doesn't matter. So I want us to really start qualifying our experts, qualifying information, qualifying me. And what I'm saying, that's why I start with saying things like what I'm going to say makes sense. It's good quality information is going to make sense. So back to the point, I want us to really listen, and not listen with the intention of, you know, placing our understanding as a filter against what it is that we're hearing. It's not about what you know. It's about what's being said to you. Empty your cup, like Bruce Lee used to say. You know, you can't come at it with a full cup. Empty your cup. What are you saying? What are you meaning? What are you experiencing? And everyone with depression is not the same. The struggles are not the same. The symptoms are not the same. The triggers are not the same. So because you might have experienced one person's challenges in the past, the next person might be completely different. It's important that we approach it that way. So those are two things that you keep in mind when you're dealing with someone who makes it clear that they're struggling with this thing. And so the 5 P's now in order. Number 1, be proactive. And, you know, I'm going to put these also in the description below. Be proactive. And proactive means exactly what it sounds like. You don't wait for anything. You don't even wait for an invitation sometimes. You know, this is the one time, I don't like overbearing people per se, but this is the one time where being overbearing can save a life, save a family, save a relationship when it comes to this struggle. So the 5 are: be proactive, be present, do not probe, don't push, be persistent, and then be positive. I'm going to break those down individually. So being proactive, when someone is clearly behaving different, do not wait for them to ask for help. Depression many times makes you feel like you're not even worth the help. There's a lot of self-worth challenges. You know, some people feel that way, some people feel different, but there's a lot of self-worth. Like, you know, you really just feel worthless. Your worth is just less. And so it's very hard to ask for help when you're not feeling like much of anything, okay? So don't wait for them to ask you for anything. If you see they need something, just show up. Just bring it. If it's someone you care about, this is the time when they really need you. And if you've never struggled with depression or never, you know, been aware of your struggle, because I'm not gonna lie to you. I would struggle with depression before I knew what depression was. I didn't know I just knew how I felt. Then when I learned what depression was, I was like, oh shit, that was that. So if you've never dealt with it, you might not be able to understand these things personally, but you want to be really empathetic and really supportive right now. So being proactive just means show extra interest. Do not wait for them to ask you for anything. If you know they need it, show up. If you know they need some any kind of tangible thing, just show up with it. That's your friend. That's your loved one. You are making yourself just invaluable to them in that moment. Be present. Being present means, you want to not, again, kind of the empty cup thing. Don't feel like you know what to do. You want to listen in a way that you're listening to not just what they're saying, listen to what they're not saying. And I'm going to give you a specific tool on listening at the end of this particular piece, where it's not just what they're saying, it's not just what they're not saying. Listen to their body language too. People forget that body language is a whole language. And the thing about body language I want to educate folk on is body language is very hard to fake and manipulate, because a lot of it is subconscious. You don't even know what you're doing. I can watch people, sometimes talking, and their body language says certain things. And if I point it out to them, they'd be like, I did? And think about that for a second. Like, body language is stuff that you've been doing since you was a kid. And so you don't even think about it. It's like blinking. You don't even think about it. But it suggests certain things. It suggests certain levels of comfortability. It suggests certain levels of sincerity. It suggests certain levels of confidence. It suggests certain levels of lack of confidence. You know what I mean? You ever seen somebody talk to you like this? I mean, and you're talking to them, and they're looking away, or they're facing away, but they're looking like they're looking this way, but it doesn't always say the same thing, but it says something. Okay, so listen to their body language. And one of the tools you can use is like, if you see somebody saying something or not saying something, and this goes for a couple of different pieces here. What you can do is go, well, I see, you might not have mentioned too much on this, but I want you to know that I'm here to support you in any way possible. That's part of being present. I want you to know that I'm here to support you in any way possible. And I like saying it this way. You can say, you don't even have to finish asking. Once you mention it, yes. The answer is yes. Yes. The same way I'm not, yes. That's how you want to make them feel, that you are there for them in a way that they don't even have to feel they have to muster up the inquiry so much so. And that's also going into, the third piece. Do not probe or push for information. It's very hard to talk about some of these things. Depression is often linked to some really deep trauma. Some either childhood-based trauma or some new trauma. Sometimes it's episodic, where somebody passed away or some traumatic situation. And it's hard to really relive that. You don't want them to relive that. So, if you see them talking about something and they, again, don't go into it too deep, do not press for information. The worst thing you can ask someone is, why are you depressed? The worst thing you can ask them is, do you want to talk about it? No, they don't fucking want to talk about this shit. And you don't want them to talk about it. Sometimes they will want to talk about it because they want to vent, or they'll want to talk about it because misery loves company and they just want to be miserable for a second. But that is not what you want to do. That's not what you want them to do, because then they're reliving that toxicity of that experience, and then your air is getting all that toxic stuff, you know what I mean, that they're spewing. So you don't want to probe, you don't want to push for information. The reason that they're depressed is not as important at this time as them coming out of that hole in that current situation, in that day. The reason that they're depressed 9 times out of 10 is long and extensive, and it's going to take a while. What's more important is, hey, let me put a smile on your face. Hey, let's go for ice cream. Let's go for drinks. Let's go for coffee. Let's go for whatever. And you got to have sometimes that whatever mentality and be that whatever friend, because sometimes it ain't ice cream or coffee. It's something a little bit more intense than that. You know what I mean? More serious than that. And you just got to be there for your friend. And that's when y'all are going to be friends, for real. Ice cream, coffee, and drinks is like the light version of sometimes what depression's symptoms are, or what their needs are. So don't probe, don't press. Now, at the other at the same time, the other P is to be persistent. So don't probe, don't press. But what you're being persistent about is showing up again, right? And this is when you see, like, they'll say something and you might be concerned, right? And they'll say something that might sound like they're just really not in a good space. And this is where you want to be not proby, not pushy, not pressy, but this is when you pull up like a Uber driver and just be like, yo, I'm outside. What you doing? I got some drinks. I got some smoke. I got some whatever. And what you doing? Check on them. Persistently check on them. Text messages, phone calls, sending them funny memes every day. Shit that they can laugh at, okay? Be persistent. And don't feel like you did enough. There is no enough. All right? If this is your friend or loved one, be there for them. And especially if you don't understand this. If you understand this, if you've been through this, you know what the hell I'm saying right now. If you don't, but you really care about your friend, I'm telling you, be persistent. Show up in different ways, in multiple ways. Be the guy, and then this is the last piece, the positive piece. You have one job in this situation, is to pull them out of that hole. Be the guy that always has a joke. You know, find some funny Kevin Hart shit, some funny Steve Harvey, whatever. Always has something to make them laugh. Always has something to make them feel better. And when they're, you know, talking about the things that are causing the depression, whatever the case may be, don't join in that. Misery loves company. Don't be company. What you want to do is always be the opposite direction of wherever they're leading you to. If you can identify that as a negative, right? Be the opposite direction, but you're not being the opposite in being oppositional, and you're not being the opposite in terms of like the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, of course, to not be depressed, right? Of course it is, right? But the thing that you're doing now is getting them to the next step. And this is a tool that will help you do that. You know, I was talking to a sister the other day, and she was saying how her friend gets depressed about men. You know, she had some, you know, issues where stuff kept recurring. And that's another thing we need to be clear on, is like when there's a recurring issue. Now this is not a cut. This is an observation, not a criticism. But we need to be clear on this, because we as a community lie to ourselves, and we just do. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna hold you. When you are finding that there's a recurring issue, the constant, which equates to the focal point, is you. You know, I was listening to a radio interview the other day, and the lady was talking about, yeah, I've been married 6 times. Sister, you being married 6 times immediately does not qualify you as an authority on marriage. It doesn't. You know, there's no bragging points with that. She was saying it like, you know, so I know what I'm talking about. How? You know what I mean? I'm not coming for you. I'm saying, like, we really need to stop lying to ourselves and wearing dysfunction as a badge of honor. And that's a part of our community. You know, you can kind of think of a lot of different things that people say. I remember a sister years ago, you know, we were kicking it, and she told me that she was engaged 4 times. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And she was saying it like, you know, like niggas want me. And I'm like, yeah, but if ain't nobody really claimed you, you know what I mean? Like, I'm supposed to be number 5? What I look like? You know, and I'm saying that to say, like, we just need to not engage in dysfunction. We lie to ourselves. We put sugar on shit. That is something that we do. Stop me when I start lying. And that needs to stop. It just needs to stop. And, you know, we need to take the initiative on making things or calling things for what they are. Not calling people out. Not challenging and being combative. You know what I mean? But calling things for what they are. Like, that's not okay. That's not cool. That's not healthy. And don't just go along. One of the worst things we can do is just tacit approval when we hear some bullshit and we don't say anything. You know what I mean? I had to pull out of a situation the other day because just the behavior that was happening, I was like, I disapprove of this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. You know what I mean? And I had to stop for my own sanity. So being positive, coming back to the last P, being positive is where you don't let them pull you into some stuff. You always are taking the next step out. So, you're dealing with somebody who's always in a situation or feels this way. You're not going to be like, well, we're going to get our lives together. No, you're going to say things like, well, what's one thing we could do to not let that happen again? What's one step we could take in the other direction? What's one way we can make sure that, you don't end up here again? And those are just, phrases that you can use. And the whole idea here is to always be headed in the positive direction, outside or opposite of the direction that they are walking down. And you have one job in that case when they're talking to you. And the last thing I want to say about talking to you is you don't want to encourage venting. You know what I mean? You don't want to be like, go ahead, shawty, go ahead, homeboy, go ahead, just vent, get off your chest. No, that's not what you want to do. Venting is not a healthy process. You got, and here we go. Like, where did you hear venting from? Okay, what community did that come from? And I want us to always look at where we get our information from. Always look at the source of your information. What community did that come from? Number one. And number two, why is it good? Okay, the reason I'm saying it's a challenge is because when you vent, you re-engage yourself in a negative experience, and your mind, your brain does not know it's really not happening at that time. All your mind knows is you're saying something that you're feeling and responding to in a negative way. Venting is never fun. Venting is never like the process. Now, some people might say at the end, yeah, I feel better. Okay, I'm talking about that in a second. But the act of venting is not pleasant. You're going to get upset. You're going to get some knee slapping. You know how we do. We start slapping that leg when we get upset. You're going to get some angry hands, some fists, you know what I mean? People start to cry and get emotional when they're venting and talking about things that were not pleasant. And you talking about it again, you re-engage in that unpleasant situation. And there is another shock to your system, and the situation isn't even really happening again in real life. So this is not something you want to do. I'm going to do a video on alternatives to venting. I'm going to do that one next. I'm going to put that up because that's a whole thing. But at the end of the day, I want us as a community to get quality information. And so this is one that is challenging to some people because some people like to vent. Some people like to, but I want you to get beyond what it is that you like and attach to what's healthy. We don't always like things that are healthy. We sometimes like behaviors that are not healthy. Now, detach from what you like if you can objectively identify some measure of unhealthiness to that behavior. Get married to better. Marry what's better, not what and this is where I'm talking about with our community. I can, and I can break that, and I'm not into science and statistics, again, because I question the sources. And one of the things about statistics is, people always, I had a conversation with a lady one time, and she said, studies show that men, think about sex 8 times more than women. And I'm like, you know how dumb you sound standing in front of a man telling me what studies show men do? You know how stupid that is? And the thing about it is, have you ever been in a study? What studies are these people referring to? Do you know anybody who's ever been like, what you just asked, son? Oh, I was coming from a study. Where are they getting this information? I have seen personally a fact or a product being questioned, its effectiveness being questioned on a website, right? And the website quoted, so the product quoted some science as to why the product's effectiveness works, why the product works. There was some science behind it. This website now, which was saying that this product wasn't all of that, or whatever the case may be, never quoted any science. It was just like, nah, you don't need that. And it's like, with no references to anything, it was just discounting the science behind this, right? And my whole thing is, who is writing these Wikipedia articles? Who is writing? God ain't behind Google. It's a dude or a girl typing that information, okay? Google is not the God of information. It's not, okay? And I want us as a community to stop trusting Google and start trusting us. Trusting us meaning, of course, you're going to do your research, right? Don't just, and this is why I said time at the beginning. Let us take the time to develop quality opinions based on our own research and looking into things, cross-referencing information, and making sure that what we're finding is consistent across different offerings. You know, we're finding consistent truths. Of course, the one person says it, another person says it, another person says it, another person says it, that looks like you. Period. And that's why this message is for our community. Our healing needs to come from us. Period. Okay? Not saying there aren't allies, not saying we can't borrow information, but I'm saying one of the things that needs to heal our community is a galvanizing of our resources and resourcing. Okay? I'm going to look, fuck Dr. Oz, it's Dr. Sebi. And they killed Dr. Sebi. I really feel like that was really what happened, because this dude was healing. He was curing cancer 20 years ago. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Sebi, Dr. Sebi, I had the pleasure of meeting someone who knew him personally and worked with him personally. And she was like, this dude is amazing. And his information and knowledge was very counter to Western medicine, American medicine. It was a lot of shit he said that when you listen to it, it made sense, as opposed to listening to these people who are telling you things about things that really were completely made up, like fibromyalgia. Like, that's not a real thing. Okay? Fibromyalgia, and I'm going off topic, but I just was doing some research for a friend of mine the other day where I learned that fibromyalgia is an interaction of chemicals with artificial ingredients in medicine with artificial ingredients in food. It's like the interaction. It creates this thing that listen, we are in a crazy system, okay? I'm not going to go into it too deep in every video, but if you just look around you at all this shit that's going on every level, from the policing to the moron in the White House to the medications and the sicknesses that we're experiencing at massive disproportion to other communities, and then also the monetization of our sicknesses. You know what I mean? We're dealing with some purposeful and deliberate stuff here. This isn't accidental, okay? And we need to really take a hold of the fact that we are not valued in this system. We're not. And stop subscribing to the people who do not value you, and start looking to ourselves for our own healing. So I'm very adamant about that message. It's very important that we galvanize and start looking to ourselves and our community for our own healing. So, you know, it's about Dr. Sebi, because of what his message was about. And please take the time and look him up. Don't believe anything I say. Look it up for yourself and take the time, which is how I started this video. We need to take the time to qualify our resources, qualify information, and qualify the people that we value as experts and people who are giving us whatever it is they're giving us. So I feel like I went a little bit all over the place with this one. I don't know how the hell I started talking about fibromyalgia, but that came up the other day for me because a friend of mine was dealing with it, and when I was researching it, you know, the herbalist was like, it's not a real thing. It's not a thing. You know what I mean? It's something that, you know, it doesn't exist in all the communities, because what causes it is not existent in other communities. What causes it is artificial shit interacting with other artificial shit and creates this thing. So if that artificial stuff is not in this space, they don't deal with that. It's like, oh, wow. You know, but we just see people running on the beach in a commercial at 11 o'clock at night and some really nice music playing and them smiling, and then you hear all the, you know, the side effects in the fast talking, you know, might cause death. And it's like we ignore that because there's people running on the beach holding hands in slow motion. We need to get, like, those people who create those commercials, yeah, oh yeah, they might get actors that look like us, but the people that created those commercials do not look like us. And it's important for us now to stop trusting those who don't look like us and do not have our best interest in mind. And that's just a real fact. Like, you know, we dying, and they shooting our mothers, grandmothers in the church. You know, don't come tell me that I sound crazy when your grandmother could be the next. I'm not even gonna finish that sentence, but that's what's happening now. What I'm saying is, let's not trust us. I mean, let's really more trust us. What they're doing is murdering us. Which one is more impact? Which one of us sounds crazier? Okay? Eric Garner didn't commit a crime. He's dead now. And that was a father to his kids. All right? So let's be clear on the lines that have been drawn. I'm not drawing the lines, I'm just pointing them out. And let's stick to us, because no one is going to care about us the way we do. And what I'm doing here is a work that is for us. It's for our benefit, and we need to be clear on that. You know, I'm not preaching anything other than love for my people. I love my people, and I also feel it's necessary to identify the hate, to call it for what it is and respond to it accordingly. Because if not, we're just going to be volunteering to walking, sheep to a slaughter. All right, so I hope this video was helpful. If it is, comment below, let me know. I'm going to be putting out the next video on the alternatives to venting, because that's not a healthy process, and I know I go off topic and go branching off into different things, but I hope you can find some value and more value than even you were expecting, and that's what this is about. So thank you for tuning in. I'm going to be doing more. And if you have any suggestions or questions that you'd like to hear more of and have answered, I'm always digging in some research. So I'll be glad to look some things up and share with you what I find. Thanks again for listening. And remember, manage your mind, manage your circle, and focus on the win. Thanks again. Fly.